So now you might have identified that you do need a SIEM solution, and it can help you identify some of your compliance and framework requirements. But no, SIEM's tools can be a little bit daunting of a task, and also identifying where you can start to help meet those requirements can be a little bit tough. So we've outlined 5 main starting points to help you prepare for that next audit. The first one is to identify critical assets in your network. Now, there's a number of ways you can do this. Now, if you have a smaller environment, it might be easy just to manually detect your assets and really outline which ones might be dealing with the processing, the storage of that really critical information that you need to protect. If you have a larger organization, maybe a more global network, you might want to utilize asset scanners to scan your full environment, detect your network assets, and then from there you can start to prioritize your critical assets. Moving on, you should also be creating your own internal incident response plan. Now, this should be as detailed as possible, really outlining what you should do if there is a security breach. Who needs to be contacted, what is the chain of escalation throughout your organization, if you have any customer bases that need to be notified, and if you have any timelines that you need to follow to notify those customers, you should have that in place as well. Then also really identifying how you can respond to security threats, which members of your teams will be directly involved in the incident response process, and identifying if you have the correct security tools in place to mitigate those incidents if they are identified. Once you have identified your critical assets and you know what might be actually kind of an area of importance for your environment, you should start to pull in logs from that, and a SIEM can really assist with that. Maybe starting with your firewalls, your critical servers, domain controllers. If you can start pulling in those logs to a centralized platform, makes it easier to monitor your environment and detect any security breaches. You should also be identifying typical network behavior and then outlining what could be considered a security threat. Now, the typical procedure that we see is that organizations will do this manually. If you can identify the key areas of concern in your environment, what type of data that attackers might be trying to get advantage of, then you can start to put yourself in the minds of the attacker and see what might be an area of attack. So if you can define typical network behavior, then you can see, if there's whether it be manually, whether it be through the usage of a SIEM or an AI type of security solution, then you can detect those types of security threats either manually or automatically. And then the last thing that we would recommend is to store those logs to meet compliance requirements. Now, typically with most compliances, we'll see that there is a requirement to retain logs for a year on end. Some other ones, such as PCI, for example, it recommends that you have those logs immediately accessible for 3 months, and then for long-term storage, that would be a year. The other thing to keep in mind is that you should also be considering when those logs should be purged as well. Now, if you don't have requirements to retain those logs for more than a year, then it's probably best practice for you to purge those logs rather than storing them for longer than needed.